we also have some interesting news out of Ukraine, with the Russian army rocked back on its heels with Ukrainian advances, which is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, the gains have been significant, but not decisive. And I have to say that it seems to me that Russia is beginning to buckle under the pressure of the Ukrainian resistance. And the calculations that we all had at the beginning of the war are completely different now. We now know that the United States itself has poured $85 billion, is actively training the Ukrainians with in-theater covert operations. We have the United States providing intel, possibly satellite targeting or other logistical support to the Ukrainians. And Russia, quite frankly, is not treating this war like a war. They're treating it like the United States, where they're heavily relying on contract soldiers, conscripts, mercenaries. And when you're fighting against a nation that is battling for its own existence and doing a full mobilization, and you're not doing that, well, the Russian ability to win the war quickly before Ukrainian resistance could firm up is over. And now the benefit of getting largely the support of almost the entire European Union and the United States against Russia's relatively small economy. I don't know, man. Russia is getting knocked back now. Russia is being stopped. Their progress has been halted. They've been pushed back in a number of situations. And I think that you have to take a look at this conflict with fresh eyes. And this is a period where we've never really seen this happen before. We've never really seen this happen before, where a power like Russia knocked so fully back in a border conflict with nuclear weapons, with a fragile authoritarian right-wing government. Yikes. I'm happy, but I'm also nervous. I'm nervous. Obviously the Ukrainian resistance has far outstripped what many people thought possible, even Ukrainians. And at the same time, the conflict is continuing to spiral and escalate in ways that I hope doesn't happen. Raytheon, Boeing, Halliburton laughing all the way to the bank. Oh, and many others. All right, let's watch this Russia thing. Let's talk about the Russia advance, or rather the Ukrainian advance. Let's talk about that. Also, the Supreme Court sucks. I'm probably going to mention that at some point. Okay, let's go.
Claiming major victories on the battlefield after Ukrainian forces are claiming major victories on the battlefield after recapturing large parts of territories in eastern Ukraine. Local officials say Ukrainian troops on Saturday took back the strategic city of Izium, areas around the country's second largest city, Kharkiv, forcing Russian forces to retreat. Russia initially claimed it was pulling back to regroup. However, Moscow yesterday acknowledged that it had lost nearly all of the northern parts of Kharkiv. Ukraine's commander-in-chief says their forces have retaken more than 1,000 square miles of the land since the counteroffensive began at the beginning of the month. That is more area than Russian forces have captured in all of their operations in Ukraine since April. Remarkable. Videos from Kharkiv yesterday showed local residents celebrating and hugging Ukrainian troops. Analysts say the fast-moving Ukrainian offensive shows that the tide of the war is shifting. Meanwhile, the New York Times reporting that Russia's performance has prompted discontent among pro-Kremlin bloggers and staunch Vladimir Putin loyalists, creating new challenges for...
Mike, how can we as good socialists spin this as actually bad? Hey, Nick, I mean, my concern with this is that Russia is going to escalate. Like, is Russia going to be able to... I mean, I guess they could just say, hey, this is stupid, this was a waste, and maybe we should try to get peace. But I don't think I think the politics are not there for that. Like, can the Ukrainians give the Russians some sort of face-saving concession? Like, that seems to be off the table already. Like, it looks like the Ukrainians actually want to take back, for example, Crimea. How, like, so is the politics make sense for any kind of concession? It seems like the war is still not in the phase of, people are desperate for peace. It seems like there is a big appetite on both sides for continued conflict. And what concerns me is, like, these are good initial gains, but are the Russians going to fold? Are they going to capitulate, or are they going to escalate? And what does that mean? It's a very I wish I could be mind like a dumb drooling idiot who is just like, yay, Ukraine win, good. But that, actions cause reactions and so forth. Ukraine has to dig in anyway because winter is coming. I mean, it's already going to get muddy.
The Russian president, Joe, this feels like a turning point.
Well, it is. It certainly is a turning point at a critical time before winter sets in. You can be certain that Russia is going to try at some point their own counteroffensive, and we'll see what happens there. But as far as this stage of the war, Admiral, as you said several weeks ago, winter is coming. A successful Ukrainian counteroffensive, absolutely necessary before everybody's frozen in place by the long Russian and Ukrainian winter. So if you could, tell us how these victories fit in and just give us the scope and the impact of these advances by the Ukrainians.
I think they're very significant, Joe. And, you reach back and look at other wars. Think about the Korean War. At the beginning of that war,
What? That's oh my God. Think about the Korean War, where the United States triggered an escalation where China invaded and slapped us in the face for fucking 3 years, and then we committed massive war crimes by leveling every structure from the air in the entire north of the country, north part of Korea, killing millions. What the fuck?
North Koreans had massive advances, pushed the South Koreans and the U.S. allies all the way to a tiny corner of what is today South Korea. The landing at Incheon kind of came around behind them and created a new circumstance on the battlefield. So, yeah, I think this is pivotal. We'll know
until
more.
The point where China entered the war and created another circumstance.
In the days and weeks ahead, of course. But 4 quick points. One, tactically, this is really hurting the Russians in all the ways Mika mentions.
True.
But
I agree with
also
that.
It's the loss of manpower, the loss of morale as they watch this unfold, the Russian troops. Operationally, what the Ukrainians have showed us is they can conduct a complex dual front, if you will, offensive set of operations using combined arms very effectively. Thirdly, strategically, think how this is playing today in Beijing, where they're in preparations for the big meeting with Xi and Putin, and how this is being portrayed there. They're going to try and make it look better than it is. And then fourth and finally, and I think most obviously, huge psychological uplift for the Ukrainians. Look at that flag flying. Look at the faces of those people. As one would say about war, the morale is to material, the equipment as 3 is to 1. This is a pretty good moment for the Ukrainians.
So, Admiral, you mentioned MacArthur's brilliant landing at Incheon. That obviously was just a strategic.
The United States of America, the global superpower, fought a small country, which was half of a small, formerly imperialized country. Wow. This is the most irrelevant shit I've ever seen. What the fuck are you talking about? This has nothing to do with Korea. Nothing to do with Korea at all. Korea was about an escalation that led to a stalemate. What the fuck are you talking about?
Move brilliance that caught the communists off guard. I'm curious, what happened here? How did we have such a decisive turning point and such a rapid collapse by Russian forces?
I would point to three things, Joe. The first was a brilliantly executed campaign of misdirection. Everyone was talking about the coming offensive in the south. It was going to be focused on Kherson. It was.
We already watched that video, didn't we?
Cutting off the Crimean Peninsula.
Didn't we already watch the counteroffensive fog of war thing, or am I crazy? Didn't we already watch it, or am I wrong? I thought we already did.
By the way, that is moving forward, but that was all the Ukrainians talked about. Meanwhile, they were preparing.
No, this is such trash. It's like, oh, you bring this guy on to talk about what's going on in Ukraine, and he talks about Korea. It's like, motherfucker, can you talk about what's happening? Useless.
This strike in the north and in
Chad,
the east.
I want to show you this.
Secondly, you're really seeing now the heavy impact of the Western equipment going into this.
That's the thing. So for me, I think what's changing the conflict, to give the analysis I gave earlier, I expected this guy to say something of value, but basically it is $85 billion of material from the United States and billions more from Europe. 2, it is the active intelligence support, logistical support, and in theater covert operations by the United States. There's a whole bunch of things that have happened that are beyond the capabilities of the Ukrainian military at present. That leads people to believe that if the United States is not directly intervening, it's doing so covertly. Future feels really scary and unpredictable. The rate at which resource consolidation and climate disasters escalate these tensions globally. Don't like being a doer, but I'm not as stupid so as to not be afraid. Yeah, Apollo, I hear you. And rests Sarinian. Thank you for the 19 months, bud.
Is very significant. And then
your name has a lot of vowels.
The moment at which the Russian troops start to see the walls close in on them, you really feel that, armies are like people. They get scared. They find themselves in moments when all of a sudden all you want to do is turn around and run. And these are Russian troops, many conscripts among them. Second tier, a lot of them have been killed, maybe 80,000 killed and wounded. This is not a red badge of courage moment. These troops are going to start rolling out.
Did you read the book? Did you read Red Badge of Courage? Did you read the book? Did you actually read the book? The entire purpose of Red Badge of Courage is that the soldier doesn't show courage, but he takes a wound, and people look at him as if he is some hero when the wound was suffered in not brave circumstances. That's the fucking point of the book. What are you talking about?
I think that's going to accelerate in the days ahead.
God damn it, dude. No wonder we've lost every war we fought since World War II. Jesus Christ. Jesus fucking Christ.
Are you watching the stream unsubbed? You're making income inequality worse. You are doing anti-praxis.
We are the only Twitch stream that will not accept scam advertisers, and I will never fuck you over by selling you crap.